Okay, I think we're live now. Let me double check, make sure everything is functional. And yes, okay, we are officially live. Hooray! Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Brittany, and most of you should probably know that by now, but just in case you didn't, this episode of Antagonists Anonymous, I like how I said episode. Anyway, this webcast is devoted to self confidence, which is what you guys voted for. So I hope you enjoy it. And today, instead of my usual co host, I have a special guest. Okay, you want to introduce yourself?
Uh, Hi, I'm Jan Fosse. I'm absolutely no expert on anything, but I like to talk, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay!
Yay.
I like to talk too. Before we get started on the self confidence, I did have a couple questions that people sent to me via anyway, questions. Okay. So, first one, I had somebody ask what Antagonists Anonymous was. And I do have a video on this channel titled What is Antagonists Anonymous? I'm pretty sure it's the name. But I did make that several months ago. So, to be honest, not entirely sure what's in it and it might be unreliable. But basically, we are just doing weekly webcasts by writers for writers talking about writerly topics and other stuff. Whatever you guys want to know, whatever you need help with. I post polls so that you guys can vote on the topics you really want to see and hear about. Um, in addition to that, we do have a couple of shorter videos about things that you guys asked for, but maybe wasn't a large enough topic to take up an entire live stream. And I do plan on making more of these shorter videos. So if there's anything that you guys want to see for that, let us know. Second question that I got was: is Antagonists Anonymous linked to Inked Caffeine? Um, no, even though I run both. No. Inked Caffeine, for those of you who don't know, is a website all about promoting indie and unpublished authors, writers. It's been on the back burner for a long time, and I feel really bad. I only featured one person, and then the project got shoved to the side. And I know the darling who asked me about it, she was supposed to be featured next, and then things, real life got in the way. It is getting back going though. I'm so sorry. Um, and that's all I have for questions. But before we get started, I had several people ask me to see. Last night, I went to see Fantastic Beasts and I bought a Harry Potter cardigan, and nobody believes that such a thing exists. So I'm going to show you real quick. Okay, so this is it. I'm running into things. I'm in the library. So,
Oh, that's pretty swanky. It's even got a hood.
it's and it has lightning bolts and broomsticks and glasses and
Reversible.
super duper comfy.
Yay.
And I feel so weird for doing that in the middle of a library, but yes, very comfortable. It was from a Hot Topic table that was at the movie theater, and it was, I think, like $50 ish. It's really well made, really soft. I love it. I recommend it if you want to buy it. But that's that. It's also very warm, so I'll probably end up shedding it at some point. But that's all done. All that random crap is done. And now we are focusing on self confidence, which is what you guys voted for. Um, so, my biggest thing about self confidence being an extrovert is a lot of times I hear people saying things like, well, introverts, they don't have self confidence. That's not true. I know a lot of introverts who are extremely self confident because just because you don't get all hyped up about spending time with a big group of people doesn't mean you're not confident in yourself. Sometimes they're linked, sometimes they're not. So try not to make that assumption. Just because I'm a self confident extrovert doesn't mean every extrovert is like, I'm the best thing ever. Maybe they just like hanging out with their friends. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Um, did you want to add anything about that, or did you have anything in particular you wanted to say?
Well, it's funny. I am the opposite. I am an introvert. I have like two sides. I can turn it on. I am a comedian. I do improv, but I can't actually talk to people like in the grocery store. I will go run and hide behind this cans of soup or something just to get away from people. And I struggle with self confidence. I'm not going to lie, especially where writing is concerned. It's like um, it's like money. I understand how it works. I don't necessarily have much, um, but the only thing that's going to get you through, especially from a writing standpoint, is understanding that 99%, well, okay, maybe 95% of people who write think everything they write is garbage, and it probably is. And um, once you just say, okay, you know what, everybody's in the same boat as me. The first time you write something, it's awful, and I'm just going to write through it, and then next time I'm going to edit it, and by the time I've edited it 7 or 8 times, it's going to be really good. Then it helps to kind of understand that everybody starts in the same hog trough, as it were, of crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in last week's webcast, but I'll say it again. When you start writing a book, when you are just starting, by the time you get to the end of that manuscript, your writing is going to be better than it was at the beginning, no matter how long it takes. If you write a book in a month or if you write a book in a decade, it doesn't matter because every time you write, you get better. Which is kind of awesome because there are some things that you practice and it doesn't happen that quickly, but it really does. I know a lot of people who have been writing for years and they'll look back and say, oh, that's terrible. But the same is true if you look a month ago. What was I thinking? Why did I put that in there? First drafts are garbage. They're supposed to be garbage. First drafts are word vomit. You're just getting it out there, making it better later. That's how it works. And some people, for some reason, particularly people who are new to writing, I think they don't fully grasp that concept that they're supposed to be bad and that being bad makes them better. So I think self confidence for new writers in particular is something that's kind of lacking. It certainly doesn't help that when you tell somebody you're a writer, you're there are like three possible reactions that I can think of off the top of my head. First one, the ideal reaction. Wow, that's so cool. What are you writing? Spoiler alert, you're not going to get this reaction very awesome unless you have friends and family than I do, which you probably do. But moving on, second reaction you're going to get, oh, what's your real job? Okay, so they've acknowledged that writing is a hobby and not something that's actually going to make money. That's fair. To be fair, most writers don't make a lot of money, but it's also like, really? You can act interested. That one doesn't hurt too bad. It's the third one that's like, you're writing something? Really? This person thinks that you had the creativity of a teaspoon and they're probably never going to read anything you write, which can be a real downer. It can really hurt your self confidence, but at the same time, do you care? Do you really care? I mean, if this person is never going to read your book anyway, then their opinion means nothing. And you can just say bye bye. If this person is a family member, that makes it a little more difficult. But I don't know. I just ignore negativity for the most part. And if people are not supportive of what I'm doing, I cut them out of my life. It's a pretty easy decision for me because I'm at the point now where I know what I'm doing. I'm doing it on purpose. For those of you who don't know, I don't work anymore. I don't have a full time job. I am a full time writer. and I also teach paint classes on the side. That is my income at the moment, but I am focusing entirely on writing and my children, and I'm a Girl Scout leader. And with just those four things, I'm busier now than I was when I was working full time, because I feel like when you're working full time or working too much, even because I had a lot of overtime, you dismiss everything else. You're like, well, I don't have time for that. So you don't make time. So I wasn't making time for writing. I wasn't confident in my writing at that point. Like I knew, like, yeah, this is pretty good, but I have other stuff to do. And now that I'm making time, I mean, I'm not saying go quit your job. That's not what
No,
I'm saying.
quit your job. Do that.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Unless you can afford it. But for me, I got lucky, and that's how I was able to do that. But I'm just saying that because I chose to focus on writing, I became more confident with it. So I think even if you are working, if you make the time to write, the more you do it, the better you'll get and the more confident you'll get with it. I think it's sort of a natural progression for most people. The better they get, they're like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I'm okay with this. Of course, we all have those moments where we write something and then stop and look at it and go, this is never going to see the light of day. And you just delete, 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 delete.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, side note, I forgot to mention this at the beginning. If you guys have any questions relating to self confidence or confidence in writing or literally any topic, there is a chat box that you guys can drop questions in there, and I'm glancing at it from time to time. In addition to that, if you would rather use Twitter, you can use the hashtag #AskAntagonists, and I'll try to monitor that one as well. But if you have any questions, because we can only blabber on for so long without prompting, even though I know you have notes and I
I have
don't.
notes.
Yeah. Is
Ugh.
there anything you wanted to say since I'm just sitting here blabbering?
Well, on the subject of taking it seriously, for a long time, I would say, "Oh, I'm a writer," and people would say, "What have you written?" Well, like 4 pages, but they're really good pages. Or I wrote part of a chapter once. Well, then we had our daughter, and my husband said, "Well, we decided together that I was gonna stop working and stay home, take care of our daughter." And that man, one day he came home, he took the baby away from me, and he said, "Go in the bedroom, shut the door, and start working. It's time." And so I treated it like a job, and I still do. Almost 4 years later, I come in, I shut the door. It now locks because she can walk and open doors. And she was coming in and trying to help me write. But if you treat it like as sacred a time as anything else in your life, if think of the time you spent sitting down watching the Real Housewives of Mariposa County or whatever it is, or, oh, I can't miss this game on TV. If you cut a little back on that, you can carve out enough time to sit down and write. And if you respect that time and you honor that time and you go in and you work, you're going to look back at the stuff you wrote and go, ugh. And then you're going to keep going. And then all of a sudden you're going to look and you're going to say, holy cow, I've got a whole book here. And it may not be a good book. My first book is perforated, put it on a roll. It's not good. But my second book that I wrote in the process of querying and submitting. The third book I wrote is a serial novel that got runner-up for best science fiction serial on Chanillo.com. The fourth book I wrote is in revisions, and I'm writing my fifth book for national. I can never say Nanu. I'm writing it this month, and
NaNoWriMo.
that's what it is. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And if you find yourself blocked by content, like, oh, I don't know what to write about, let me say a few good things about fan fiction. Yes, I know the dirty, dirty stigma of fan fiction, but if you're new to writing and you're looking for a way to hone your craft and you don't want to go through all the trouble of world building and coming up with characters, take something you like and write a goofy. There's fan fiction for everything. I know this because I've looked it up because I want to make fun of it, but I won't make fun of yours if you write it, dear watcher of this show. There's Golden Girls fan fiction. Go write some stuff. I'm serious. I there is such bad fan fiction out there. We could do a whole webcast about, oh my god, what were these people thinking? But if you enjoy something enough, that you think about it, write a little fan fiction, put it online, and you'll get a response. The thing about fan fiction communities, they're very encouraging, they're very helpful, and you'll say, oh, I get it, I see how this works now. And eventually it's kind of like going to summer camp. You learn how to make a little wallet, and then you go home and you make a purse or something. I don't know, but it's a good place to start if you don't know where to start. If you just kind of get over the whole it's writing's ugly cousin that comes to Thanksgiving, and you're like, oh god, she's here. So yeah.
So I'm really glad that I muted my microphone because the second you said Golden Girls fan fiction, I lost it. I was over here just dying. I knew it was a thing, but I forgot. I think I probably willed myself to forget that it's a thing, but oh my goodness. Okay, so in the comment box, we had a couple comments that I wanted to talk about. There was one that says, I think I devolved a little with word sprints in wars. The content is great, just poorly written, missed words, autocorrects, etc. Um, yeah, and that does happen, especially when you're sprinting or competing in a word war, which is when you compete against other writers. For those of you who don't know what that is, but that does happen. You'll have words that are just crap. You'll look back and be like, what did I even mean? And that's okay. You're just getting things out there. And I actually love word wars and word sprints because you're going so fast and you're just trying so hard that a lot of times what comes out is not what you planned, even for me, the obsessive planner and plotter that I am. And that can be a really good thing. Sometimes things will just have more description than you intended because you're just trying to get those words, or sometimes it'll go in a completely different direction. And it's always so great. And yeah, your grammar is probably going to suck, but it's okay because it's a first draft. You're just getting the words out there. You're putting sand in the sandbox, which is another comment that I saw, which I love that analogy. There are so many analogies for this, but you're filling up your sandbox, you're making castles later. Just get it out there. It's a lot easier to have things you need to cut out later than need to add them in. I am normally an overwriter, which means my first draft is usually way too much and I need to trim things down. For my NaNoWriMo novel, I'm done. I'm done with my NaNoWriMo novel. I finished my manuscript, but when I finished it, it was only 38,000 words because I had skipped parts that I didn't feel like writing. I skipped an entire chapter, actually, if I'm honest. There were parts when I was like filling these details later because I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach the situation. Um, so I finished it. I finished my final chapter. I added an epilogue. I was done. But not only is 38,000 not enough for NaNoWriMo, it's not enough for a science fiction novel, which is what I was writing. An average science fiction novel is 80,000 words. So I have been spending the rest of Nano going back. I've been adding chapters, I've been adding sections. At the ends of my chapters, I'm writing scenes that honestly don't have a place. They fit into the story, but I'm not sure where they're going to go yet. But the words are there, the scenes are there, the situations are there. So when I find a spot for it, even if I have to rewrite a few things, I can just slip it in because it makes the story better. I'm writing situations that are super high in character development and really pushing the situation home before it was kind of, you could tell what was going on in the story, but it wasn't as powerful, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. So I've been working on that. So underwriting kind of sucks because even though your first draft is finished really quickly, your second draft it takes a lot longer because you're adding instead of taking away. But even if you're an underwriter, don't worry. You'll still get there. But if you have the problem of, oh, this is word vomit, I'm just spewing things out, keep spewing. You will use those words somewhere. And another comment that we had, where is it? My self confidence is more to do with the different masks we wear. My writer self is far darker and weirder than my mummy slash work colleague selves. This is a common problem. Um,
Embrace the dark side.
yeah, I was just gonna say embrace it because I have friends who are not writers, several of them, and they don't get it. I'm not gonna lie, they don't really get it. But they've just accepted that I'm a freak now, and it's fine. But embracing it doesn't mean you have to say to your colleagues, what I googled last night: how to murder somebody with a tampon. Probably not water cooler conversation. Just saying, probably not something you should bring up. Like, how was the game, by the way? So I'm not saying that you should tell them the dirty secrets of what being a writer really means, but it's okay to be a little weird with your kids and with your colleagues. I'm not saying overwhelm them, obviously, but it's okay. And it's okay to act differently around different people. A lot of people mistake that for being two faced. But it's not the same thing if you're adapting to your environment. The stuff that you write, I mean, imagine if you're, say, a horror writer or murder mystery. Just because you're writing about that stuff doesn't mean you're gonna start killing everybody. Probably. So,
Wow.
have confidence in who you are. Be like, yeah, I'm a writer. I write this weird stuff, but I'm also an awesome mom and somebody you guys have known for years. So get over it. At least that's my take on it. I don't know what yours is.
Oh, well, I'm to the point now, people are so used to me that the people I hang out with know that I can't talk about anything other than writing most of the time. And if I do, I'm kind of like, uh, uh, yes, I enjoy the weather. And can I tell you about my book instead of this conversation? Because I really am not enjoying socializing. Um, Embrace it, own it. You're a writer. Not everybody can do that. And it's something to be proud of. And like for me, I shape my whole life around it instead of pushing it to the side and being like, oh well, yes, I'm a writer, but we don't discuss that with polite company. It's it's who we are ultimately, and it should be right out front. And if I could get away with wearing a shirt that says, "Hey, I'm a writer," without looking dork. Well, I don't care about looking dorky, but I say own it. Everything else is the side stuff. Everything else is what you put on. The writer is the real thing on the inside. And you're right. It's really awkward to talk about, different ways of killing people in mixed company, I suppose, but it's fun. And if you're really uncomfortable with people, if you're with somebody that you don't like, be like, what's a really fast acting poison? I do. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. That's true. If you really don't like somebody, you can always write them into your novel and, kill them off in various creative ways. I've done it. Um, Sorry, that was really funny. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember who said it, so I don't want to give false credit here, but there is a writer who gave the advice of if you are a writer, even if you're not published, you're still a writer. And that it kind of bothers me actually when people say, I'm an aspiring writer. No, you're not. If you're writing, you're a writer. Um, Personally, I think author means you've published something. So if you're an aspiring author, that still sounds like you're reaching for something. I would just say, I'm a writer. I write things. That's who you are. And even if you have a job other than writing, um, I've gotten into the habit, and I started doing this while I was still working a full time job, and it really helped me get a lot more confident in what I was doing. When people say, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a writer," instead of saying, "Well, I am a DSP CRMA and I work in people's homes, adults with developmental disabilities, blah, blah, blah." That's what I was doing. But instead of blurting all of that out and telling them about a job that I wasn't enjoying, I said, "Hey, I'm a writer." Because if they're going through the normal stages of polite conversation, when you say, I'm a writer, they're going to act interested even if they're not, especially with somebody you don't know. So they'll be like, oh, what types of things do you write? Or what have you written? Or are you published? Blah, 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 blah. So you're talking about something you actually enjoy rather than something you don't. And if you do love your job, that's awesome. So obviously tailor it to your current situation, but most writers that I've talked to would rather be writing than doing anything else that they're doing. So they would generally rather talk about that as well. That's just my personal experience with that one. So let's see. Um, my Google history is a scream. Yeah, mine too. I actually brought up the tampon thing because I've done that. I think I've mentioned that before. Um, Yeah, you can suffocate somebody with one. Did you know? You can.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's handy. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
handy, but
Like it just has to be wet. It expands. It's anyway. Moving
fascinating.
on.
Yeah, I said to my husband, I need you to, I've started telling him to look things up. I'm like, can you look up how you make sodium cyanide? Because I don't want to get put on a watch list. It's okay if you're on the watch list, but not me, because I'm probably already on several.
Oh, me too. I think that's
Oh,
like the danger of being a writer. Like, no, 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 don't arrest me. I'm just a writer. It's fine.
yeah. Something you said about saying that you're a writer, if I may.
Hmm.
Um, when I was really struggling with confidence a while back, I got a journal out, and I wasn't a journaler at the time because I didn't think I had anything interesting to say, which is, whatever. But I started writing every day. I am a writer in this journal, and it's a really boring read, but I wrote it every day until I believed it. And now I'm journaling every night. And I always write, I'm a writer, to remind myself that I went from saying, oh, I've written 4 pages of what might be interesting if I were to plot it, to what did I say, 5 books, 4, 5 like length, long books that go from the beginning to the end and have a plot and stuff, instead of just like 4 chapters that I stapled together and said, whoa, if I ever finish this, it'll be interesting. Um, so yeah, whatever it takes, if you have to put up in your wherever you are that you work, put up the word writer. I am a writer somewhere. Start saying it, and the more you say it, the more you'll believe it. It's that, what is that, law of attraction? The secret? It works. Tell yourself, this is what I am, and I'm good at it. And even if you're not, eventually you will be. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Oh,
So does anybody have any questions? We have about 30 minutes left of the planned time for this. Normally, I say, yeah, about an hour, but if it goes over, it's okay. But today, since I do have to teach paint classes, it's a bit more of a strict schedule that I'm keeping. But if you guys have questions, we do have time to answer a few of them. So light us up. It's fine. It doesn't have to be confidence related or self esteem related, but it can be if you want.
I've got another thing while we're waiting for a question to come in.
Okay.
Um, Something I started doing a long time ago too was I call it my confidence shelf. I have a shelf in my millions of bookshelves that is full of the worst writing I've ever read. There are atrocious, just disasters, used Kleenexes of novels on that shelf. And I keep every one of them and I go back and I reread them every time. And I say to myself, if this can get published, so can I. I have a book on that shelf, and I'm not going to say who it's by, local author. And there is a 3-page section where the two characters order dinner at a restaurant and they go through the entire conversation with the waiter. And I'm like, why would you put this in the gripping ranch dressing ordering scene? And this book got published. So if you find, what do you call it, tripe? Hang on to it. Look at it. It'll inspire you and say, I'm better than that. And look, it got published as a cover and everything. So that's a handy thing. Sometimes I have readings from it when I have friends over. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's true. We all have books that are not impressive. I don't like to call writers out, but I have read books that I was just like, really? And there are some books, still not naming names. There are some books that get really popular, and I don't understand why. Because I will buy them and read them to understand, and I still don't get it. But anyway,
50 Shades. I'm sorry, something in my throat.
we have a couple of questions.
Yay!
So one of them is talk about quantity versus quality in first drafts. And we did talk about this a little bit already, but try to get as much as you can in your first draft. The quality is going to be garbage, and that's okay. It's supposed to be. I mean, Hemingway, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, whatever, all of them, their first drafts sucked. I guarantee it. It's how it is. Your first draft is basically like a really detailed outline. That's all it is. Your first draft is you saying, this is where the story is going to go. These are the characters I'm going to use to get there. Now I'm going to sit down and make it happen. Your first draft, I mean, I have some chapters that my children could write better. My children are 7 and 8. I'm pretty sure they would have better ideas of how to make things work or better word usage. I mean, especially with some of the spelling tests they bring home. Oh my gosh. I'm very impressed with my children's school. But anyway, moving on. Um, just the more you can do in a first draft, the better. Always. Zero exceptions. I definitely would not say the same for your final draft. It is obviously quality over quantity for that one. When you get to the final draft, you should be worrying less about word count and more about making sure your story makes sense, making sure there are no plot holes, making sure everything is polished as can be. But a first draft, I mean, it's garbage. It's a pile of garbage and it's supposed to be. And you should love that pile of garbage and cherish it and make it into something that doesn't smell bad. So that's my answer. What's yours?
Well, there's this book by an author, Anne Lamott. She wrote a book called Bird by Bird that is a wonderful book on the writing process. And one of my favorite quotes about the first draft comes from that book. And you'll excuse my language, but it's from her. And she says, you write a shitty, mewling, self-indulgent first draft. And in the section where she's talking about that, she says, if you write that a character says, settle down, Mr. Poopy Pants, you go ahead and write it because you know you're going to take it out later. It doesn't matter. whatever it takes to get you to the end of the story, put it down. The quality comes in the editing process when you go through word by word with a pencil, and you can really look at it and say, okay, whoa, I'm not that's not what I want to say, and you fix it. But when you're full speed ahead, don't look back. Go for the end of the story. And if you have to put in like something I'll get to a section, I'm like, oh, I don't know where I'm going with this. And I'll write, put something here in all capital letters and skip over it and keep on going. Or some people put them in brackets and they'll be like, fight scene, information on how to kill someone with a feminine hygiene product, poison, and you skip over it and you just go. And then it's in those later rewrites, and you're going to have to rewrite it over and over and over, because one of the things I think early starting out writers will do is they think they have to get it perfect the first time out, and they'll re-edit paragraph 1 for a week, and then they have this one paragraph and nothing else, and they've lost the creative juju that keeps them going. And you have to stay in that spot and just go, I don't care, I'm just going to tell this story however it comes out, and I know I can fix it later. I think Stephen King equated that the first draft to some bodily function in his On Writing book. I don't know if it was vomit or diarrhea. Pardon me, I'm usually not this vulgar, but it's one of those. You just, spray it out of whatever orifice it comes out of and fix it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with all of that. Um, if it helps, I have an image on Twitter that I recently tagged Jan in so that she could see it. And it's a screenshot that I took of a page I was writing months and months ago, but it's really bad. It's terrible, and it has like notes to myself in it and everything, and it's still like that. I have not fixed it yet because I just finished my first draft. So it's I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about, the thing that I tagged you in. It's apparently it's really fun. It's funny to me too, so I don't care if you laugh at it, but
It's
my
a thing of beauty.
manuscript my manuscript is entirely like that. I have sections that are really serious and I'm really on a roll, and then I have sections where I start writing to myself in the middle of a paragraph, and I don't. Sometimes I use brackets, but it's usually like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you writing this? This doesn't make sense. This is garbage, garbage, garbage." Um, and then I just keep writing because it's like I will fix that later. So if any of you want to see the screenshot that I took, let me know, and I will tag you in it on Twitter. Um, because I don't care if you guys want to see that we are all equally terrible. By all means, that's absolutely fine. Um, but yeah, it's your first draft is garbage, and it's always going to be garbage. We have another question. What advice can you give for sharing writing with strangers, aka beta readers, or friends, family? Um, Beta readers, we've talked about this a couple times before, not today, but beta readers are the easiest things to find ever if you're on Twitter, because all you gotta do is say, hey, I finished my manuscript. Who wants to beta read for me? Guarantee you will have people interested, especially if you use the proper hashtags. Um, just make sure you are clear about your genre so that people know ahead of time, because some people don't like certain genres and you don't want beta readers who would not normally buy your book because they're not going to give you as valuable feedback. You should have a variety, but not, I mean, if you're writing a young adult vampire mermaid novel, a 94-year-old woman who only does the crossword every day and reads the Bible is probably not going to like it.
Well, you never know. It may turn around to a whole new way of life.
Maybe, but probably not somebody that would be like my first draft pick for beta reader.
Yeah, no, never.
I'm just saying, you know, make sure you're making good choices. So talking to beta readers is the simplest thing ever. Talking to friends and family, I mean, if you're writing something that you're ashamed of, you don't have to tell them what you're writing. Just say, "Hey, I'm writing something," and they'll be like, "Hey, cool," or "Okay." I mean, I don't really find it that hard because I've been writing for like 20 years and I'm only 27. My family has seen this coming for quite a while. They know that I'm a loser and they've just accepted it and moved on. Um, and all of my friends know that I'm a nerd, so it's not surprising coming from me if you're like somebody who's had this jock lifestyle or something and nobody thinks you even know how to spell and here you are writing epic fantasy. I can see how that would be kind of surprising, but just tell them. I mean, especially with family, they're going to love you anyway. And if they don't, then that's not who your real family is. That's my take on it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, beta readers, I actually have some really good beta readers that are family, but we have editors and journalists in my family. I'm very lucky to be surrounded by people who understand it from a technical standpoint and really supportive friends and family. And you're going to find that there are certain people in your life that will listen to every single word you have to say about writing, and there are other people you'll look at them and go, no, I'm not going to tell you this, and I hope I'm a writer, but goodbye, and let's pass the gravy, and we're not going to discuss this. But don't, like, I was always hung up on, oh god, I don't want my mother to read about this brutal murder because she's going to think there's something wrong with me. But if they've read books before, 99% of people have read a book or two, something even outside the Bible, some of them, and they understand that things happen in stories. People die, people have sexual relations, people swear, and it's not like it's you. Truman Capote says you can't blame the writer for what the characters say. So if you get in your head this separation from yourself and your work and say, this isn't me stabbing and shooting and maiming these people and going and having miles and miles of wild indiscriminate sex, it's my characters. I have no control over them. It kind of helps, but you'd be surprised. I was legitimately surprised which of my relatives eat it up, and if you give them a chance, they might surprise you.
Yep, good point. Sorry, I'm reading the chat and there are some really interesting things going on over here because um okay, so this is a concern some people have with beta readers is that your work can get stolen in a way. Here's the problem with that. People as a whole are fundamentally very lazy. Um, and I'm not saying that just because I'm also lazy, but writing is hard. Writing is really hard. And when you are submitting to beta readers, you are generally giving them one chapter at a time. So if you give somebody, say, 3 chapters, chances are they're not going to run and make a book out of it because A, they don't know the rest of the story, and B, it's hard. So I don't worry about it as much. My current beta readers are also writers who are friends of mine, but the majority of your beta readers aren't going to be writers. They're just going to be readers. So they're going to appreciate the book for what it is, and they're not going to go try and publish it or make it their own. There are certain laws and regulations that can protect you if you are posting things online and it ends up copied and shared somewhere else. I don't know these word for word, but I know there are protections out there. So if this has happened to you, feel free to Google it and figure out what you can do about that if you share something on your blog and then somebody else publishes it and gets money for it.
Um,
Personally, if somebody is like taking part of what I've written and sharing it, and then a lot of people are enjoying it, I'm okay with it because it's like, oh, you like what I did. Thanks. So, yeah.
something on that line. There is, I don't know, I'm gonna mispronounce it. I believe it's called the Berna Convention. It's Berne convention. It protects um, created material. It will. I'm not sure what all it covers, but it covers writing. I know that, and it's not a copyright per se, but there are international protections in place, to prevent people from taking your work. And I will say I have had one really unsettling experience with a critique partner who we were trading chapters back and forth, and all of a sudden I said, "Why, your story's really starting to resemble mine." And then I noticed that her tweets were starting to resemble mine. And I said, "Okay, well, you've gotten all you're going to get from me." And after I think it was 2 or 3 chapters, I just broke it off, and I've rewritten it 4 times since then, so she can have the crap. Go ahead, honey. See what you can do with it. So you don't let people, that's the exception to the rule. The general community of writers is very supportive and very understanding what's involved. So I don't think you're going to run into a lot of crummy people, and if you do, I think it's the Berna convention, the Bernie convention. That sounds kind of weird. Hey, it's the Berna convention. That didn't go so well in this country, unfortunately. Bernie. But anyway, I've lost my train of thought. So there you have it.
Oh, goodness, funny. Sorry, I had to mute there. I had a small child walking through. Dangers of working in the library. Um, yeah, and from what I see on the chat, the piece that was stolen was an unpublished academic piece. Academic articles are a little different. From what I understand, academic articles and things like that are a lot more competitive than writing, say, a fiction novel. So I don't really have experience with that. I can understand that that would be way different. Um, but as far as writing a book that is not an academic book, like more of just fiction, or even if it's nonfiction, the chances of having your work stolen are very slim, extremely slim. Like I said, most people don't want to put in the work
Yeah.
involved, and if you are freaked out about it, you can always choose rounds of betas and just be like, okay, these ones get the first 3 chapters, these ones get the next 3 chapters. However, the danger of doing that is your betas are going to be very confused. They're not going to know what's going on in your story, and they're all going to give you really bad feedback. But if you're looking for betas that are more for editing, which is not what betas are for, but if you're looking for people to do that, then I suppose that is a way that would work. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend finding people who read your genre, your type of book, and just giving the whole thing to them. Maybe not all at once, because then be like, but just chapter at a time. And based on what you get for feedback, you're going to end up changing your story anyway. It's not going to be the same when you give it to betas as when it goes to the publisher or you publish it if you're doing indie, whichever. Um, so yeah, betas are interesting, and we do have, I think, as long as it's still there on this channel, there's an entire live stream devoted to talking about beta readers. So that's there too. I'm not sure how good it is because it was quite a while ago, but it is on there. So we have about 10 minutes, and I don't see any other questions or comments of interest to discuss. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Oh, sure. Going from my page of notes, something I wrote down uh, as I'm trying to read my handwriting. I type, I don't write. Um, Sometimes when you are starting out and you're writing and you look at your first draft and you think, oh my God, my favorite author is Stephen King, Maine native Stephen King. And you think, oh God, look at his stuff. It's so good. It's so polished. It's so clever. And whatever it is that you admire about whatever writer it is, you're looking at their ninth draft and you're comparing it to your first draft. And that's not really a fair comparison. It's like, taking your T-ball team and putting them up against the Chicago Cubs. You're going to get you're going to get beat no matter what. So something I've done in the past is I take a passage from my favorite writing, and it's tedious, but I type it out word by word into a Word document, and I look at it not in a book with a cover and the famous name behind it. I just look at it as words on a page. And the funny thing I've discovered is they use the same words I do. They do this. They make paragraphs. They have dialogue. Sometimes when you look at it outside the context of published book, you say, "Whoa, that's not really that good, is it? I've done better than that. I've done worse." But that can really build you up in a way that. And always remember, it's not only is it their ninth or 10th rewrite, it's also gone through a professional editor. It's gone through, whatever steps you have to go through at HarperCollins to get to the point where it's on a shelf. Focus groups, I don't know, whatever it is they do, it's not really what they originally wrote. It probably is unrecognizable from their first draft, and yours will be too, as long as you just keep sticking in and working at it. Go get them, kids.
Another thing that's helpful, and this one really makes me laugh because I just did it the first time myself about a month ago, and now it's like my favorite thing to do. Take a book that you think is really, really well written and open it up and open up a Word document or whatever program you use and type out a couple paragraphs word for word from this book and then change the font to Comic Sans. It is easily the most therapeutic thing I've ever done because it does not matter if you are Shakespeare. Nope. Everything looks really stupid in Comic Sans. I don't know why, but it goes from being this like elegant, you know, David Copperfield just
to a sign for a lemonade stand.
it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And it makes everything, it makes the most serious scene seem not as serious, and it makes it more relatable. It's pretty giggle inducing depending on what you do it to. I've done a couple Stephen King scenes. That's always funny. Somebody dying in Comic Sans. It's great. It's really great if you're trying to compare yourself. But don't. Not I don't. I'm saying just don't. Don't do it if you can resist the urge because comparing yourself to other writers is never going to work out in your favor. No matter who you are, whether you are somebody making millions of dollars off your books or somebody making a penny a day off your books, the problem is there's always going to be somebody better than you. Always. There are always going to be writers out there that are always going to be better than you, no matter how much you write, no matter how much you practice, no matter how much money you make. There's going to be somebody better. And that kind of sucks because you can't measure greatness in writing by money you make. Because I know people who hate Harry Potter with a passion. They absolutely hate Harry Potter. Yeah, she's made billions of dollars, but no, they don't care for the story. So to them, she's not a very good writer. To somebody else, it might be the best books they've ever read, ever, greatest writer ever, better than Shakespeare. Writing is really opinion driven. So there might be people who think you're the best, and then there are going to be people who think you're garbage. And you need to just brace yourself for that, accept it, and move on. You're never going to be number one, but you should still do the best that you can because you might be somebody's favorite author someday. And how cool would that
Yay.
be? I mean, can you imagine like somebody writes a book report on you?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
Or like on your book? Mind blowing. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? And then they'll say something like, in the early days, they would watch weekly webcasts about writing.
Yeah.
In the future, when holograms are a thing, you never know.
Another thing of note is especially if you're around other writers and you see all these people and your first thought, if you're like me, is, oh, they're better than I am. And you kind of, you back off and you don't, you lose that confidence. Remember that there are people in this world who are really good at talking about how good they are, but that doesn't mean they're as good as they think they are. Some people are amazing at self-promotion and self-aggrandizing, and you might not be a really good self-aggrandizer. I am not. I've got, you know 5 books. I have an article in a national magazine. I am runner-up for best science fiction serial 2016. And when I'm around another writer, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you must be better than me. Oh, you have 4 pages done. Oh, they must be very good. And I'll just be quiet and not say anything. And that's wonderful for you. So if you remember that some people are just amazingly in love with themselves and you might not be, it doesn't mean they're better than you. It doesn't mean they're worse than you. It just, you got to kind of learn to let it roll off. I need to learn to let it roll off. Are you listening to me, self? Let it roll off, please.
My recommendation in my final 2 minutes here is to treat every writer you meet like they have something to teach you. Because chances are they do. Even if you're a better writer than they are, or they are miles ahead of you and they're a bestseller, um, just try to learn something from them. This is really helpful if you're doing things like going to write ins locally with real people in person. I know it's really scary for some people, or going to a writing conference like I will be next year. Yay. Um, just try to talk to other writers because if you're trying to build self confidence, particularly about saying out loud, I'm a writer, what better person to say it to than another writer? Because they're totally going to get it. They're going to understand it. They're not going to care. They're going to be like, oh, me too. Oh, me too. Like, let's be besties. And it's the easiest friendship you've ever made because writers don't care if you're writing another genre or like what age group you're writing for or if you're it doesn't matter. We're all writers. We are a particular breed of people that other people just don't understand, and it's fine. So, so yeah, I would say talk to writers, build up your confidence, make more writer friends, and just figure out who you are as a writer.
Even if you have to do it online, like we are both in a group of people on Twitter, the gibberish group, shout out, who just talk about life and writing and send weird memes back and forth to each other. Find a community and you'll feel like, what was that music video? The one where the little girl's dressed up as a bee and she went through town. She didn't see anybody who appreciated her tap dancing till she opened the gate and there's the field with all the bee people. Find your bee people. They're probably on Twitter.
Oh, that's so true. Twitter's such a great resource. I really love it. But it is noon, and I haven't seen any new questions or anything for a while. So I think we are good to end this live stream. Are we good? Do we have any last minute questions? Checking real quick. Not seeing anything. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so Thank you guys so much for coming. We will be back next week. I don't know if it'll be we. I don't know if Jan will be. I will be here. Either way, not sure who my guests will be. Maybe I'll have more than one. That would be super fun. But either way, Antagonists Anonymous will be streaming again next Saturday, probably at the same time. I know you guys, those of you who were watching the live streams that occurred several months ago, are used to a bit of an earlier time, but I am a slave to the schedule of the library still because my home internet is still non functioning. Yay! So later today or possibly tomorrow, I will post a poll with topics in it for next week, and you guys can vote, retweet the crap out of it. If you have suggestions for a topic, please comment on this video or tag me or DM me something. Let me know, and I will add them in. And that's it from me. All right, say bye.
Bye. Have a good time now.
Bye, guys.